This is the YouTube chart analysis of Punjabi rapper who recently expired tragically via assassination, Sidhu Moose Wala or Shubhjeet Sidhu, I think his name was. Very frankly, I had not heard much about him before this because maybe his genre is not in tune with my times, but I was, it was so sudden that I thought, and given his popularity, which I came to know after the news of his demise came, I thought, let me take a look at his chart and see if there are any indications about, how his tragic life unfolded. And I have determined his birth time myself because there were many birth details floating around, and what I knew for sure is that he was born on 11th June 93 in Mansa district in Punjab. And the birth time that I have determined is 2 a.m. Now, what happens is he becomes an ascendant Pisces. Such people are very decent people, simpletons at heart, and they can be manipulated by people, especially very emotional. So emotional relationships are a source of trouble for them, and they are so naive that they can be taken advantage of by one and all. But at the core, they are decent human beings, and despite being a very decent and a non-confrontational kind of a human being that ascendant Pisces are, how come that this person ended up in a hail of bullets? So let's take a look at his chart. His second house has Venus. That means that he would have done well in the in the music industry or related to films, YouTube or whatever that he was doing. Parents were the source of his income, wealth, enjoyment. That means he came from a well-to-do family, a decent family. There was no shortage of wealth or money or resources from his home. Third house has Sun enemy positioned with Ketu. Now that becomes a little complicated, and this is where the trouble starts. One, this shows lack of any siblings, and second, this shows that his father would not have been able to control him. Control is not the right word, that he would not listen to his father basically, and his father would be worried about him a lot. And as we know, during that assassination thing that happened, that he did not take his bulletproof vehicle and his security guards that were allocated to him, and his father was, who got worried and was chasing him with his bulletproof car so that he could be adequately protected. So now his fourth house has Mercury, and his Mercury is in its Lord house. Now this is a very lucky blessing for him. That means he had landed property, wealth. He was refined in his manners, could be a very polite charmer when he wanted to, and would have been popular with the opposite sex and vice versa too. And his mother would have been the source of his landed property, income and happiness. That means his mother belonged to a very wealthy family, and there was no shortage of wealth. In fact, he must have been raised like a prince. His fifth house is where the trouble starts. Mars is debilitated at 29 degrees, which slips it to the sixth house. Now that is where the trouble starts, because what happens is debilitation of Mars makes one very cranky, ready to argue, ready to fight, not one who would get along with a lot of people, and also would rub people the wrong way and would gather a lot of secret enemies. And on the other hand, it shows that there is no happiness from children at all. So these are all trends that we see. When we see that there is no happiness from children at all, either this is the indication of that there is no married life basically, or even if there is a married life, there are no children or happiness of children. So this is the first warning sign that comes in his chart, which could spell some trouble after his third house Sun. Now his seventh house has Jupiter, that is enemy position. Now this has to be borne in mind that just before his assassination, he had his seventh house Jupiter Mahadasha, which he lived through. So he would have been basically adequately educated. He was a bachelor's in engineering. He had done a graduate course, I think, I'm not sure, from Canada, and during this time he would have been popular with ladies, but he would not have been able to convert his romantic liaisons into marriage due to Jupiter being enemy positioned. And again, basically during his 7th house Jupiter Mahadasha, the reason why he got through this Mahadasha was because he would have been distracted. His focus, such people, ascendant Pisces, the kind of chart that he has is basically they are so naive, you have to focus them towards something. So during this time, he was focused towards his education, towards maybe his romantic liaisons in Canada and India, and also towards his singing career. So that was where the focus was. But at the same time, as you will come to know, due to his debilitated Mars, he was making enemies, powerful enemies, and he was too naive to realize how powerful or dangerous they could actually be. So what happened is he lived his complete Jupiter Mahadasha, and now the next source of trouble that his chart shows is that his 8th house has Rahu. That is never a good placement. It means sudden adverse events to one's health and well-being. And basically, if he had lived long enough, this would have given him health troubles, or he would have had a risky lifestyle. So this is also another red flag in his chart. Now we move on. This is his 12th house is the critical house that is the reason why we lost him. His 12th house has Moon and Saturn Lord house. Now as I have done many chart analysis, I have seen that this combination of Moon and Saturn, his Saturn was in its Lord house but retrograde in the 12th house, and I have seen that this cocktail is a very dangerous cocktail. On one hand, it makes him very emotional, ultra emotional, thin skinned, and with him being an ascendant Pisces basically means that anybody could say anything to him and he would not verify the facts, and out of emotions he would act. So if this is seen in conjunction with his debilitated Mars, that means that you go and tell him something about somebody and he will directly start taking enmity with that person without thinking about his well-being. While this placement can be good if one channelizes one's emotion, there's a lot of pent-up emotions in a positive way, but for that you need a good Mars. His Mars was debilitated, so that means he basically rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, maybe the wrong kind of people, and ruffled a lot of feathers. Now Saturn retrograde in the Lord house, in the 12th house, what that means is he would have done very well in his profession. He would have been earning a lot of money, but eventually his profession, due to his profession, he would have attained moksha. Basically that's what it means. So what happened is after his Jupiter Mahadasha, his 12th house, even though Lord house Saturn Mahadasha started retrograde, and basically he could not even live through the Saturn period of it. Within a year of the start of his Saturn Mahadasha, we lost him. And what happened is, though he was doing very well in his profession, but Saturn placed in the 12th house, even though it's in its Lord house, means that he would get a lot of income. He would make a lot of money. Career would be the source of success for him, but this is not the long-lasting success that one looks for. This is the flash in the pan success, and basically this means that there is threat to him, threat to his life via his profession. And also this means that the person passes away, but his name lives on after he passes away. So if you see the analysis sheets that I have attached, you will see that his Saturn Mahadasha started in July 2021, and since then he was on watch. He was on cosmic watch. If he had come to me about a year back, I would have warned him. Now, see, young deaths, they are very difficult to predict, and especially sudden deaths by assassination, it's very difficult to predict. I would not have been able to predict his death for sure. Now, if he was 55 or 60 and if this Mahadasha was starting, I would have told him, be careful, you can suffer a heart attack or something like that all of a sudden, given his planetary configurations. But for this fellow who's 28 years old, I would have just told him, be very careful. Be careful and do the remedies. Now, the sad thing is that he chose a fast lifestyle with guns and all that being portrayed in his videos. And given his temperament that I can see from his chart, this kind is never good. It generally leads to a very, very risky and violent end, and this is what happened to him. I feel bad for his parents, who has left behind with wounds for the rest of their natural lives, parents who have raised him with so much love and care. And I just hope and pray to God, gods of all faith, to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, to Devi Mata, to Shivji Maharaj, to Swami Shivanand Ji Maharaj, to grant peace to his soul. Hari Om.